Grindy games with repetition, as much as that may sound immediately boring, and I can hear you hitting the snooze alarm. But no, it's actually pretty interesting. Just again, depends on your personality type. So Adam, what's your take on the logic behind the emergence of RNG and this grindy nature in a lot of multiplayer games?
I think it's just the natural evolution of games. I mean, before video games, we had D&D and we had tabletop games, and you know, if everything was kind of a flat way of doing it, it's basically just chess. So a way to kind of vary things up in D&D, they use dice, right? And everything was done on dice rolls. So you have basic attacks, you have your critical attacks, you know. And it just kind of makes the game a little bit more exciting if you can get a crit every now and then, or, you know, flub something and miss every now and then. And I think when video games started first coming out, I mean, some of the old, I think even some of the old, like Warcraft 3 or something, they've even had dice rolls on some of the attacks, right? So it would tell you an attack range. It can say, an enemy, you know, we can hit between here and here. And I think when we started getting into these multiplayer kind of live service games, then I think it just kind of, you know, they were continuing off this as tradition. That's the way things had been done, and it had always kind of worked. So let's just continue with that. So I think it was just kind of that natural progression. And then, you know, over time, they've fixed a few things, like, for example, having pity rolls, or having, you know, you get some kind of totem or something every time you play so that you can unlock things, or the Monster Hunter route, where instead of, you know, making things I think Monster Hunter still has some RNG in it, but making things a little more skill based. So, you know, you get rewarded for completing certain tasks like cutting off a tail as opposed to just straight up killing it. So I think it's just kind of I think that was just the natural progression from tabletops, where it was just, that's the way we do it. It makes sense. You know, we don't have to, why reinvent the wheel? And then, you know, later on when they did it, then they start seeing some problems with it.
All right, Jess, let's get into the details. So if you do have a grindy RNG repetitive game that you like, what is it and why, Antoine?
Again, I'm not a big fan of
Not
grinding.
even zero? Do you have zero grindy games that you like at all in your whole life as
that I like to watch? Listen, grind for me is not necessarily RNG. Like, for me, the first grindy game I had were Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9. Like, for instance, you can finish the main quest at level, I don't know, like 60 or 65. But if you want to get this extra hidden boss and everything, then you need to take your guys to the hardest island and grind and kill enemies repetitively for 20 hours just to go to level 99 and have your max level.
Is that true, Adam?
You didn't have to be level 99, but sometimes, yeah, you'd have to take things off, you know, to overlevel.
For the weapons in FF7.
Yeah. Final Fantasy is typically, the final boss is not the most difficult boss in the game. There's usually some sort of secret boss that's actually more difficult.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep going.
No, it's okay. It was the same for another Final Fantasy, like, I forgot the name. Ocean.
Star Ocean?
Star Ocean, thank you. Like the same, you know, there was this 100 level labyrinth at the end, which was super tough, and I just couldn't beat one level, and I had to go grind for hours to get my my stats up. So that's grinding. That's not RNG, and that's literally, for me, bad design. Because if you have to do this, that's really annoying. Take Horizon, okay? Horizon, you have to grind, you know, like the rest of everything. You have to upload levels and everything, but you don't see it happening, never, because the story and the side quest and everything make it very interesting, and you never see your character level. I'm already level 44 now. I'm like, when did that happen? Oh, already? Oh, that's grand. And the only level the only part which is grinding, and I'm sure Adam is gonna be will agree with me, is upgrading your pouch. For instance, it's hunting animals. It's not part of a side quest. It's not getting you any experience really. It's just literally just to upgrade the pouch. So it's annoying as hell, but you have to grind because it's based on RNG. You kill squirrels. Will you get a fur? Will you get a bone? Will you get nothing? And you grind. And again, that's the grindy part of the game, and it's annoying. After you have, I don't really play Soul game, but for instance, right now, I know I'm a very bad player of Soul games. That's why I would never play Elden Ring, but I love watching it. And the guy I'm watching spent the first 5 hours, and literally 5 hours of this game in the front camp. He did literally, in terms of distance, he must have walked like 30 steps. First camp, and he just keep killing the same enemies over and over to get their gears. And then when he's all geared up, he goes and he's strong enough to continue the adventure. I would never do that because I find it like, oh my god, that's so annoying. I killed this knight and he dropped the gauntlet 3 times and the footwear like 4 times. I don't want that. I want his weapon and his shield. I find that annoying. So I like to see other people, do it for me. That's why I like streaming this stuff. I don't want to play it because I know that I'm gonna get really pissed.
And what about you? Do you have a favorite?
In terms of grinding, I would say it's something like the Monster Hunter kind of thing. Horizon Forbidden West and Zero Dawn kind of have this to an extent. This is something that I thought was an improvement on Forbidden West over Zero Dawn. Is on Forbidden West. On Zero Dawn, you would have to get machine parts sometimes. For if you want to buy something, it'll say like, oh, okay, you need a Thunderjaw heart, or you need this, or you need that. But if you broke a piece off of it, typically it would just be resources. You might know what kind of resources they are, but so if I knock this off, I'm going to get echo shells or whatever. But typically they would just be resources. But in Forbidden West, they've made it where sometimes a certain part of a machine is a resource itself, like a Thunderjaw tail. So if you can knock the tail off, you can get it. But then they make it so that if you kill it without knocking the tail off, the tail will be destroyed, and it'll tell you which components, how you get them. So it'll specifically say like this component is destroyed if the monster is killed. So you have to knock it off first. In other components, it'll say this component remains when the monster is killed. And the only way to get it is to not destroy that component. So the fact that it tells you how to do that, and it's more skill-based, and it's not RNG, I think that's a much better design, because you have a goal that you're going for, and you have a way to get it, and you're guaranteed to get it if you can complete the task. So I think in that sense, it's a lot better. There are still a few things that are RNG, like lenses and whatnot, but most of the things that you're going to need are not going to be RNG. And for example, some of the things you need, like Apex hearts, are if you kill an Apex, you're guaranteed to get a heart. So those things are good. A game that I thought was really good, or a design that I think is really good, is something like Witcher 3, where in Witcher 3, you got very little experience from killing monsters, almost none. But you got a lot of experience from completing quests. And because of that, you're actually discouraged from going out in the wild and just killing everything you see, because there's very little reward to that. But you are encouraged to just focus on the story, get through the story, do that. And so in that way, it actually discouraged grinding, but in a way that's still kind of grinding, because that's how you're getting your experience. And I think that is probably the better design, is where the grinding is done in the background. You're given a task to do, and as you do that task, you're naturally getting those levels or those materials in the background, as opposed to you need those materials, so you're grinding to get those, as opposed, yeah, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
That makes sense.